Okay, so we are finally here. Welcome to lecture number 22nd of the series Unreal 5.1 for Archviz, and in this lecture we'll finally run Unreal 5.1.1. So let's get started. Here on my screen I have opened the Epic Games launcher, and in the previous video we downloaded Unreal Engine 5.1.1. So let's launch it by clicking this option. Okay, so let's select the architecture preset. I'll select this blank preset, and let's find a place to save our project. I'll name my project as Archviz_1. Okay, so here we are in Unreal Engine. This is the interface. We will discuss all of these. We'll discuss all of these options in the toolbars, okay? But as we need them, okay? Because I believe if I just put it all out at once, it will be just too much to remember. So to make things easier, I'll just explain them as we move along this series. Hopefully you will enjoy this approach. Okay, so first of all, let's discuss the Unreal Engine's primary file explorer, the content drawer, or you can also call this as content browser, okay? The content browser is just like a file explorer that contains all of your files and assets like your 3D models, materials, and textures, your blueprints, and all of your other assets. Okay, so every folder, every file that you create in here will actually be created where your project is saved. Okay, so for example, if I create a folder in here, let's rename this folder as my underscore 3D underscore models. Yeah. Now, if I open my Windows File Explorer and go into the directory where I saved my project, go into content. This is exactly the same folder that I created inside my content browser. Okay. Now, before importing our 3D models, let's create a new folder. I'll rename this folder as levels. Okay, let's go into this folder and let's create a level. Okay. Now, a level is just like a project file which contains all of your assets and project settings all linked all together. Okay. Whenever you start a project in Unreal Engine, you need to create a level which will contain all of your project settings, and it will be directly linked with everything you have in your content browser and in your scene. Okay. So let's open this level and I'll save it. As soon as I save this level, our scene will turn into a blank scene because we have nothing in our scene as indicated by the outliner. Okay, this outliner is just like the outliner of Blender. It contains everything that you have in your scene, and right now we have nothing in our scene, so it is just empty except for our level. Okay, so let's add something in our scene. Let's add a light. Let's add sun sky. Okay, I will go into this option where you can add different sort of things in Unreal Engine in your scene. Okay, and I'll go into lights and let's add a sun sky by dragging this into our scene. Yeah, okay. Now, in order to navigate around your scene in Unreal Engine, you need to use W key to move forward, S key to move backward, okay, W and S, and A key to move left, D key to move right. By holding your right mouse button, okay, first of all, you need to hold your right mouse button, then you need to press W, S, A, and D. Okay. Now, if you want to move on Z axis, you can move on Z axis by pressing Q and E. E to move upwards, Q to move downwards. Okay. So W, A, S, D, just like a video game, and Q and E to move on Z axis. Okay. Yeah. So now when I select this sun sky option, we have some details in our details panel. We can transform this, we can change the location on x-axis, we can rotate this on x-axis, y or z, and we can scale it as well. Okay, so for example, if I want to move this, I can also move this by changing the value in our details panel. Okay, And I can also use this gizmo to move this object. Okay, for example, if I want to move on y-axis, I'll click this arrow and move it on y-axis. Okay, yeah, okay, same is the case for x and z. Yeah, okay, so now let's press Ctrl and space to view the content browser. Okay, let's dock this one in our layout. Let's go into the folder of content and let's delete these two. I'll delete my starter content as well. Okay, I'll delete this Archviz default as well. Yeah, okay. I'll go into the folder of my 3D models and let's create a folder. I'll rename this folder as walls. Okay, let's go into this folder, and to import our FBX files, I'll click right mouse button on my content browser and I'll select this option, import to, and let's move into the location where we have saved our FBX files. I'll select the FBX file of my walls that I exported from Blender and I'll open it. Okay, I'll select import all. Yeah, and it will import all of my FBX files. Just ignore these warnings for now. Now these circular sort of icons represent the materials, okay, as indicated inside these parentheses, okay, and these objects are our 3D models that we modeled in Blender, okay, as it is written inside the parentheses, static mesh, okay. Now be advised, 3D models inside Blender are now named as static meshes inside Unreal Engine, okay. Now you may have also noticed these static icons in the bottom left corner of our materials and static meshes, okay. This represents that these items are unsaved inside Unreal Engine, okay. So you need to save them first. So I'll select this option, or you can also select this save all option, and I'll select this option of save selected, and it will save all of my static meshes and my materials, okay. Now as you can see that we don't have any stars anymore. Okay, so now to bring these static meshes into our scene, I'll select this static mesh, okay, and I'll hold shift on my keyboard and I'll select this static mesh, okay, and it will select all of my static meshes, okay. By holding my left mouse button, I'll drag all of these into my scene. Yeah, okay. Now, because they all have the same origin point, which is the origin point of our scene, so I'll just type in 0, 0 and 0 in our X, Y and Z location values. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have successfully brought our walls into our scene. So now let's go back into my 3D models folder and let's create a new folder. Let's rename this as Windows. Let's create folders for all of our collections. Bed, curtains, and kitchen cabinets. Okay. Exterior, couch underscore 3, couch underscore 2, couch underscore 1, wall underscore decors, book underscore shelf. Okay. Now let's go into this folder of bed and let's import the FBX file of our bed. Let's select the FBX file and I'll open it. And let's import all of these. Let's ignore this. Okay, so before bringing all of our static meshes into our scene, let me first organize our outliner. Okay, I'll select all of my walls and let's put them in a different collection. Let's rename this as walls. Okay, I'll select my sun sky and move this into a different folder. Rename this as scene. Okay, now I'll select all of my static meshes. I'll drag them into my scene. Okay, and let's move them to a different folder. I'll rename this as bed and I'll type in the location values of 0 because they all have the same midpoint, which is the origin point of our scene. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's save everything. Okay, so let's go into the folder of our 3D models and let's bring in the bookshelf. Okay. Okay. I'll select all of my static meshes, my 3D models, and I'll drag them into my scene. Let's move them to a different folder. Okay, I'll rename this as book shelf. Okay, and let's put in the location values. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, let's go back into the folders of 3D model and let's bring in couch 1. Open and import everything. Select all of my objects, all of my static meshes, and let's bring them into our scene. Okay, let's move them into a different folder. I'll rename this folder as couch 1. I'll select everything in my couch 1 folder and let's put in the location values. Sure. Let's now import couch 2. I'll select all of my 3D models and let's bring them into our scene. Let's move them to a different folder, couch underscore 2, and let's change the location values. Okay. Yeah. Let's go into the couch 3 folder and let's import couch 3. Okay. I'll select all of my objects and let's drag them into our scene. Let's move them to a different folder and I'll rename this as couch 3. Okay, and let's change the location values. Okay, yeah, let's save everything. And it will save everything that we have imported in our content browser. It may take some time depending on the speed of your processor. Okay, Let's go into the curtains folder and let's import our curtains. I'll select all of my curtains and let's move them to a different collection, a different folder, and I'll rename this as curtains. Okay, and let's change the location values. Okay, yeah. Let's import the exterior. I'll select all of my static meshes and I'll drag them into our scene. Let's change location values. Okay. Now this is something strange because we did model a surface inside this fence in Blender. Now the reason we can't see our surface is because we need to go back in Blender and recalculate the normals for this surface. We'll deal with that later. For now, just import our collections. Let's import kitchen cabinets. I'll select my kitchen cabinets and I'll open them. Okay. Let's select all of our static meshes and let's drag them into our scene. Let's move them to a different collection. I'll rename this as kitchen cabinets. Okay. And let's input our location values. Exterior static meshes, and let's move them to a different collection as well. I'll rename this as exterior. Okay. Yeah. Let's import our next collection, which is wall decors. Okay. I'll select all of my static meshes. I'll bring them into my scene, move them into a different folder. And change their location values. Okay. Let's import our next collection, which is windows. I'll select all of my static meshes. Let's bring them into our scene and let's change their location values and move them to a different folder and rename this folder as windows. Yeah. Okay, so we have successfully imported all of our FBX files. Yeah. Okay, so we need to deal with this surface. Let's see if any other object have some issues. Okay, I think, yeah, this mesh is missing as well. Everything seems to be okay with our couches. Yeah, we do have some weird artifacts with our bookshelf. We need to recalculate the normals for this bookshelf as well. Okay. Yeah, I think we need to recalculate the normals for this object as well. Now we don't need to delete the objects with bad normals. We'll just re-import them. Okay. So first of all, let's save all of these. Okay. So let's go back into Blender and let's enable our face orientation mode. Okay. So we need to flip normals for this object and the entire bookshelf as well, this window and this mesh as well. Okay, so let's select this exterior surface. I'll go into edit mode, I'll select everything and let's press shift N on our keyboard to recalculate the normals. Okay, now to recalculate the normals for this mesh, I think I need to solidify it. So let's add solidify modifier and I'll apply this. Okay, yeah, okay, and I'll select this object as well. I'll press everything and I'll press shift N on my keyboard to recalculate the normals. Let's select everything in our bookshelf. I'll go into edit mode and I'll press shift N on my keyboard to flip the normals. I'll select this object, go into edit mode, flip our normals. You know what? Let's select these vertices and let's snap them at this point. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now we have made some changes in our 3D models. So let's export them. Let's export our bookshelf. I'll select the collection of my bookshelf and I'll press Q on my keyboard to export that bookshelf in FBX. I'll select my preset Blender to Unreal and I'll go into the folder where I saved all of my collections. I'll select my bookshelf collection. Okay. And I'll just export that in FBX and it will automatically replace our previous file with the new file. Okay. So now let's select our kitchen cabinets, export them in FBX and replace our previous FBX file with the new one. Okay, let's select our bed, export this in FBX. Okay, okay, and I'll select my windows. Let's export them in FBX. Let's export our exterior. Okay, so we need to recalculate the normals for our roof as well. I'll go into the edit mode and I'll press shift N on my keyboard. Okay, so I'll select my walls and I'll export them in FBX. Yeah, okay. Let's go back in Unreal. Now we don't need to import all of our objects again by going into the import options and bringing our collections in. Okay, what we need to do is let's go into our bed folder. I'll select all of my static meshes. Make sure you don't select these materials. Okay, just select your static meshes. Press left mouse button and just select this reimport option. and it will automatically re-import our replaced file, the new one. Okay, so let's go into our bedroom. Now, as you can see that this mesh is now visible in Unreal Engine because we have recalculated our normals. So let's go into the folder of exterior, select all of my static meshes, and let's re-import them as well. Now for this procedure to happen, you need to make sure that you don't change the location of your FBX file. Just keep your FBX file where they were when you imported them into Unreal Engine. Now, as you can see that after re-importing our exterior, our surface is visible because we have flipped the normals. We have recalculated our normals. So now let's import our bookshelf. Okay. Yeah. I'll select all of my static meshes and I'll simply re-import them. Now, as you can see that we don't have those artifacts anymore. So yeah, let's now import our kitchen cabinets. I'll select my kitchen cabinets folder and I'll select all of my static meshes and I'll re-import them. Let's save everything. I'll select my walls. So I'll select everything and let's re-import them as well. Yeah, okay. Let's now select our windows. Select all of our objects and I'll re-import them. Okay, so we have successfully imported everything in our scene. That's it for this lecture. In the next lecture, we'll import some more effects into our scene, like post-process volume, skylight, volumetric cloud, exponential height fog. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next lecture.